Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Gesher. I have to say, I'm a little surprised that this topic took me 6 whole weeks to put together. One, because life caught me by surprise, but also because these topics, as hard as they are for me, once I get a spark of the idea, I'm usually able to put it down to paper and record these episodes, if you will, in a day or two. And this topic, which we're going to talk about today, which is gratitude, real gratitude that creates real happiness. This topic threw me completely off course. I spent days and hours going over this topic in my mind at different family events over Shavuos. I had 2 weddings, and then we had a funeral of a family member, and so many things going on. And I still couldn't wrap my head around this. And so here we are 6 weeks later, and I just decided to dive in and give it my best shot. So here goes nothing. Okay, so my husband and I were driving home from a wedding the other night and sitting in the car watching the hills between Philly and New York roll by, and watching the beautiful scenery through the drive ahead. And I'm sitting there and reflecting on what a beautiful life I have. Thank God there's so many wonderful aspects of my life. I have an amazing life partner and incredible family and awesome friends and a job that I love and real meaningful work that I feel like is part of my life mission as a writer. And then all of a sudden, as if on cue, I became so overwhelmed and overcome with this like intensely gripping panic. And it was like, oh my God, what if all this stuff just disappears right now? What if something terrible happens? What if we get into a car accident? What if something, goes terribly wrong? God forbid. I'm coming up with worst case scenarios. And so I reached out to grab hold of my husband's hand. I was just so aware that I needed this physical reminder that I had something to be thankful for in that very moment that was physically in front of me, because I'm sitting there trying to think, what am I grateful for? And I couldn't, nothing came to mind. And that's when I realized gratitude is a very vulnerable expression, of human life. I think it feels to me like way more vulnerable than emunah. Which is funny because emunah is extremely vulnerable, but acting on faith is one thing. Acting on gratitude, I don't know, there's something different about it. And I think one of the problems with gratitude is that we hold on to it, or we have a tendency to hold on to it or look for it when things go wrong. Like what I did in that moment in the car on the way back from the wedding, that's not an example of practicing gratitude. I was using gratitude to coddle myself and calm myself down. It didn't work, obviously, because I couldn't think of anything. I was so scared and panicked. The gratitude didn't show up for me. But was I really showing up for it? Was I doing it right? So there's this TV show that I really love called Parks and Recreations. And there's this character named Craig who's a very stressed out, very overwhelmed guy. And in a couple of episodes, he does this practice where anytime anyone does anything to aggravate or upset him, he stops and takes a deep breath and lists 3 things that he's grateful for. And they're really random, kind of shallow things sometimes, like watermelon martinis. Don't get me wrong, watermelon martinis are great, but he just picks random things. And it's so interesting how that's something we all do. We use gratitude as a form of resilience when something goes wrong. Something's difficult and upsetting. Let me think about 3 things that make me happy, and then I will be grateful, and I will, life will get better. That doesn't really happen. That gratitude is so flimsy that way. It comes and goes. It's not real, and you're not actually using it, and it's not doing you any good. So, why do we do that? Why do we use gratitude as a form of bouncing back after something goes wrong, or if we're in a bad mood, or things stink and the world is terrible, so let's think about 3 things that make us happy, and then all the terrible things will go away. Why do we do that? We only melt into a sense of gratitude after the moment has been completely taken over by fear. I'm personally terrified of gratitude. I'm so unbelievably scared of the sense of vulnerability in that moment of happiness and security that's brought on by celebrating my life's gifts. It's just it doesn't, it's a really hard thing to tap into. And I think part of this is because gratitude doesn't feel concrete. It feels very flimsy in moments when things are good and you're on a high and you're happy. yes, I can be grateful for everything, and oh, I love my life, and thank you God, and thank you my friends, and thank you my family, la 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 la. But what about when things are not great? It's gratitude, happiness, and faith go together. They are a three-part system. You can't have one without the other. So if you practice faith correctly and you're practicing gratitude correctly, you'll have real, deep, concrete happiness. But it's a cycle. Emuna, gratitude, happiness. Emuna, gratitude, happiness. On and on and on and on and on. But what does that action look like of being grateful? So I actually decided to try a little experiment, though I didn't really know that it was an experiment at the time. I really, really suck at being grateful. I am bad at it. I know I have a major problem with feeling gratitude, with expressing gratitude, with believing that gratitude will actually improve my life or make me a happier person or help me feel calmer or whatever it is. I don't like gratitude. Okay? But then over the course of the last year, we had a lot of amazing things happen in my life. I got engaged and I got married. And during our engagement especially, I suddenly felt this overwhelming, deep desire to just shower people in my life with gratitude. Everybody was going above and beyond and doing everything for us, no questions asked. And so many friends and family members were involved with this process, and it was incredible. And I really wanted to be thankful and show them that I had gratitude towards them. And I didn't really know how to do it. At first I was like, during this period of my life, maybe I should be keeping a gratitude journal so I could think about all the things that I'm, write down 3 things that I'm grateful for every day. And it felt kind of hocus pocusy. But now as I'm thinking about it, the fact that it took me 6 weeks to sit down to put these thoughts together, obviously I need a gratitude practice, because if it took me this long to figure out what gratitude is, obviously I need some way to concretize it in my own life. But the journal didn't feel real to me. So something that I started doing was taking a moment with whoever I was with, either on the phone or in person, and saying, hey, I just want to take this opportunity to thank you. You're an amazing person. I value you. I appreciate you. Thank you for doing this for me. I'm so lucky to have you in my life. Just like that. And at first my friends and my family, my husband, they all thought I was going overboard and I was just high off being a bride. But for me, it's become this way of understanding where and how to tap into my feelings of gratitude. I need the things that I do in my life, and I think this is true for a lot of people, needs to feel active. I don't do passive faith, I don't do passive happiness, and I can't do passive gratitude, but that's how I've always lived my life. Gratitude is very passive. When I get up in the morning to pray, hey God, hi, how are you? Thanks a lot for everything. Okay, gotta go, bye. So doing this practice helped me get, just become so much more engaged. It kind of, it forces me to stop and take stock of my life multiple times a day and to thank people who love and care for me. And that didn't exist in my life before. So now doing it, it's like, oh, wait, gratitude is actually great and it's awesome. And we should all be doing it. We should all have our own practices and hooray for gratitude. And it also allowed me to get back in touch with the ultimate form of gratitude, which is prayer and blessings, which is actually going to be the topic of this week's Gesher article. So yay for gratitude. And obviously I wouldn't be able to end this episode without thanking all of you. I am extremely grateful to everyone who listens and comments and tells me how much they enjoy. You guys really make my day. And it's awesome. I'll end with one story that I wanted to say earlier and I completely forgot about because I was getting excited about my gratitude cycle. A couple years ago, I was at a book conference, at a literary conference, and I met Phil Clay. He's the author of an award-winning book called Redeployment. And I had just finished reading it, and I loved it. And so when I saw him, when I introduced myself to him at this event, I told him so. And he was so gracious and very kind, and he said, oh, thank you so much for taking the time to read my work. It was so heartfelt and sincere. I mean, this guy had just won the National Book Award, and he was thanking me for taking the time to read his book. And that really stayed with me. Gratitude is great to think about, and it's great to talk about, but I think that the way it accomplishes its real mission is when it's expressed through speech and action. So with that being said, my thoughts on this topic and how prayer and blessing is associated with ultimate gratitude, head to the blog. It's gesherproject.wordpress.com. And as always, let's have conversations. Let's talk about this. In the comments, email me, text me, WhatsApp me, send me a DM on Instagram, whatever. Let's keep the conversation about ultimate true happiness going. And with that, I will say onwards.